the first person to say hello. I just want to call that person.
Hello. Oh, besides me.
That's a cheater. That's a cheat.
Sorry.
DJ MacHale, how are you?
I'm awesome. Good to see you guys.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure.
A little while. For me, anyway. You both had, where'd you go to eat, by the way, for dinner?
Yeah. The 1212 Santa Monica on the promenade.
Yeah. Nice.
It's great because Scott and I were outside. We were eating in the place, and Scott went inside and said, "This place is huge inside." I thought, there used to be a place on the 3rd Street Promenade that was like the world's largest tiki bar. It was the most kitschy place you'd ever imagine, like 2 stories. And it went out of business. I went inside. I'm like, "Yep, this is it," or "This was it." It was like back in the day, which is maybe 10 years ago. It was like stepping into the 1940s. You imagine like a nightclub tiki thing going on. So we had a good
promenade has kind of we're just kind of chatting everybody as everybody comes into the room, by the way. But the promenade I've heard is just kind of slowed. It's become a little sad, or has it? I don't know. I mean, is it still as fun? And it used to be such a happening place.
Slowed is kind.
Okay. Okay.
It fell off a cliff.
Oh boy,
COVID was the thing that kind of kicked it over.
Yeah.
But it's reemerging, and they're making it more of an entertainment place rather than just a family restaurant and movie theater. So it's coming back.
Well, I mean, they made a whole film about the crime there because that is where Pee Wee had his bicycle stolen. And ever since then, it's just been a downhill.
Oh, was it there?
Yeah.
That's when it was good.
Yeah.
Hello, Darshana, all the way from Mumbai. It's good to see your name as always. We've got San Diego representing, Cleveland, Los Angeles, another Cleveland. Hello from New York. Stephanie DeWitt, good to see you. Florencia Law was the first person to say hello, so we had to highlight her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to dive into DJ's writing process. We're going to really dive deep into just the development of ideas and where do they come from? How do you develop these things? Where do they come from? Well, but beyond that, a whole bunch of other questions.
Yeah, I will do a more proper intro, but first we have an aloha from, I'm guessing that's meant to say Oahu. So of course we have to acknowledge that as DJ and I worked in Oahu, on Oahu, right. And then back to the Ohio area. So we are welcoming today DJ MacHale, somebody who I really look up to as somebody that I've worked and learned a lot from by working alongside him. Television, Are You Afraid of the Dark? The Pendragon book series, which was not a short series. Flight 29 Down is what we worked on together. The Morpheus Road book trilogy, Tower of Terror movie, Ghost Rider TV show, the Silo Chronicles. There are many other book series on this list as well. And I just want to jump into from that. One of the reasons that I am so impressed with you is that you just continue coming up with more stories that you need to tell. So jumping into turning that into a question, is the creative process just always going on for you, or do you sit down to try to come up with your next story, or how does it work for you?
And you're not using ChatGPT?
No, no. Do I have a funny story about that, but I won't share it. I wish there was an easy answer to that. I mean, the true answer is, people say, "So what's your schedule? Do you get up at a certain time? Do you work a certain amount of hours?" The true answer is I'm always working. There is no downtime. There's always an opportunity because you never know when idea is going to hit. When the hardest thing to do is say, come up with that idea now, go.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just impossible. And even when someone asks me, what was your inspiration for X, fill in the blank, the answer is usually nothing. It's not an easy answer. It's usually multiple sources that somehow, something here, something there, something there, and suddenly it kind of coalesces into, oh, that could be something. And it's always springs from real life. I mean, we've all heard the phrase a million times, write what you know. And it's so true. It's so obvious, but it's so true. But it's a broad statement.
Yeah.
Because I'll relate that to my Pendragon book series, which is a big adventure, multi-world kind of thing. It's like, you've never jumped through a flume and gone to other territories. Right, so what are you talking about writing what you know? No, I haven't. Or have I?
Maybe.
But at the core of it is something real. When it comes down, you're talking about the book series Pendragon as an example. I often start with a character, or that's one of the elements that start. It could be a situation, could be a character, could be a conflict. What it happens to be, and usually all come from different places. But it's a story about a kid. He starts out, he's 14 years old, where this guy's got it all going on. Everything is happening for him. He's, it's like you want to punch this guy because it's like, he's smart, he's good looking, he's got a girlfriend, he's got friends, it's really awesome. And then the rug gets pulled out from him, and he gets swept away on this thing where suddenly everything he does is wrong. And the way I related to that was I grew up in Connecticut, suburban New York and Connecticut. And I made the choice to say, I'm going to leave home. I'm going to leave family and friends behind on that big jetliner. and I'm going to move to California and start fresh. And I used a lot of those emotions of, what do I know? Where am I? I don't know what's going on. I miss my family. I miss my friends. What's going on? So that has nothing to do with battling quigs and evil demons, but it's about the heart of the person. Yeah. So that was one of the real core things. So it's usually something that starts, especially with my main characters, start from something here about myself that I remember in life or whatever it happens to be. And then I put me in different situations. And so it just kind of, let's say it's a recipe. It's like a stew that kind of all comes together with multiple different things. And yeah, that's one of the fun things about it. Cause you never know if the stew's going to suck or it's going to be something that's special.
Totally. I mean, in conceptual development, when I'm working with my writers, I tell them, fill in the blank. I want to tell a story about ... but not plot, not situation, about something that I experience, about being a single child in, a latchkey home in the early 80s of suburb Chicago and not have any friends. Like that, you could make that a romantic comedy, you could make that a horror, genre really doesn't, however you want to add on to it. But it, like you're saying, it comes from that place of, I have something inside of me that I know I'll be able to feel throughout the whole telling of the story.
And write with authority.
Yeah, right.
And if you're writing with authority, readers or viewers should recognize that.
They're going to
tell
connect
when you're faking it or when you're actually writing with some. I mean, obviously from that point, especially if you're writing the stuff that I do, which is bigger than life stuff, obviously you embellish from then on. But that's okay as long as you have that core that readers and viewers can relate to. Then you got them. Mm-hmm. You can layer on all the fun stuff that is pure imagination.
Yeah. I mean, I have a question for Scott. It just popped in my head. So because you just released your second book on Voices from the Chicago Grave. Yeah, congratulations. How do you choose the particular stories that speak to you? Because these are other people's stories. You're just reporting on them, but there's got to be a connection to it in some way that lights you up. There are stories that are more interesting than others.
Yeah, sure. I mean that is part of it, because there are times where you cover. So I'll go ahead and
plug it.
Hey, there we go.
What's your ghost story?
Yeah, what's your ghost story? I mean, I found myself at times there's not much there, and so you have to find something, like find an angle, like you're covering a news story, and you could tell a story a million different ways. So what's interesting about it to me, that then my excitement has to be what comes across often, because where it's always going to, like any writer of anything, it's coming through your lens, through your voice. And for me, I don't know, part of the reason we started the Fantastic Story Society was all of these times where I'm doing research on something and I find something so incredible, whether it's a historical fact or a crazy location or whatever. And I think, how did I live this long not knowing that?
Yeah.
That's such a cool thing. Everybody should know this. So it was all those types of stories that were bursting out.
Yeah. I have more questions for DJ, but I don't want to take the spotlight, Scott. So go for it if you have questions that you wanted to follow up with.
Oh, no. Well, so actually, it's funny, though, because I did want to bring up that we just coincidentally released a book on the same week, DJ. Right.
Nice.
There we go. The paper trail. And, you've had such success with books, book writing. I mean, what's the number? I couldn't find the number for how many
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. I'm not sure myself. I think, and I tried to add it up once, that I think I published books that I wrote from the ground up, meaning it just says written by DJ MacHale, about 26 books.
Is it 26 books?
Yeah, it's a lot of books.
Yeah.
10 of which were Pendragon. So
Okay.
then if you factor in spin-offs, novelizations, spin-offs, novelizations from TV shows and whatnot, maybe another 25 on top of that. Sure, I have my name on it. So it's a lot of books. So then there is a burnout factor that happens too. So we can get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it'd be good to get into. But so with this one, you started to go for a slightly older demographic, and you talk about that in the foreword of this as well.
Yeah.
Is that part of the reason you decided to go print on demand as opposed to going through a publisher, or what brought you to this space?
No, that wasn't the reason. It was just trying to break new boundaries for myself.
Okay.
I should say that, and I think with my other book of short stories, I actually say this in the foreword, that even though I'm writing for an older audience, it's still me. I mean, writers have their style. You write after you get through that 10,000 hour rule of working, you have your style. So even though Paper Trail is an adult book, it reads like a young adult novel with F-bombs. Not quite that. I mean, the content of it is more adult and more mature, but it's still written the way I write. So if anyone has trepidation to read it, it's like, well, I know we like your books, but I don't know if we're going to go for this adult thing. It's like, it's still me.
Was this a conscious decision before you started writing? I want to write something for an older audience.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to see, if I could break boundaries a little bit, because writing for kids, kids is a wide thing. I've written everything from a couple of picture books, for young kids, to the pushing to young adult type stuff, and young adult and adult kind of is blurring now a little bit. But there are restrictions, especially in the horror genre too. And not that I intended to write anything as gory or bloody, but in Paper Trail, stuff happens.
Yeah. Early on.
I didn't say shit happens because I'm still guiding myself or editing myself. So I just wanted to see what was it like to be able to break out a little bit and not have the restrictions. And frankly, it's I don't want to say it was difficult, but I found myself going back into old ways. And it's like, oh no, I don't have to worry about that. I can write more, older. I can deal with themes that might be disturbing or not appropriate for a younger audience. So that was really the intent. In terms of going to self-publish, and that was the burnout thing, is like my agent retired. Everyone I've worked with has kind of moved on. I've been doing this a long time. And I just found myself kind of almost like back at the beginning of like, oh my God, I got to submit things. It's like, I'm too old to be, I don't want to do this. And I'm still working on my other TV and movie projects too, which I'm still willing to go down that route and deal and wait.
You kind of have to,
but that's the big brass ring. So it's like, I want to have control. I'm tired of dealing with agents and editors and people telling me what it can be, in large bookstores that say the kid has to be this age because if he's that age, we can't put it in that program. So I'm just like, I want to write what I want to write without any restriction. And I did. And it's not only just with the content of the book itself, which is the majority of it, obviously, but also with the look of it, which when it's going to come out, what it's going to look like. I don't have to wait. I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of waiting for people's response. And so it's like, I don't have to anymore. And it has been fabulous. Not a lot of money in it, I should say. It's very different than going with a big publishing house. But it's been both really, really rewarding and satisfying to say that, every single thing in this book, from the story, which I've been doing for a long time, to the font in this thing, it's all me.
Right.
There are times that I'm pulling my hair out because there's a learning curve on how to fucking do this.
Oh no, it's hard.
but once you get it, it's that much more rewarding. So, so that was really the impetus. And I've got another book coming out in August, which actually is a young adult book.
Nice.
And it's really an awesome feeling. the next step is, okay, now how do I merchant or market this thing?
Market it. Yeah. I think
Something
it's so important to hear you talk about this because, most of the people in the audience are likely skewing toward the screenwriting side, but I just want everybody listening and watching to just think of yourself as a writer. There are so many other mediums than just a screenplay. You can still write screenplays. I had been writing screenplays for forever, and then I was told by multiple people that this feature that I was writing needed to be made into a book. And I thought, oh God, I'm going to have to do that. And I did, and it was so rewarding. And I queried 30 different agents. I got turned down, and I eventually said, screw it, I'm going to do it myself. And you're right, there's not a whole lot of money in it, but it's just so freeing. You can do whatever you want. And it's a way to get your brand out there, let people know that, look, I am more than just a writer of this particular type of TV series,
Yeah.
It's building a brand.
I have a good buddy who's authored some books, some middle grade books, but he's also known as mostly an animated screenwriter. And he's going through the same kind of frustration, especially now. I mean, the TV industry and film industry is really tough right now for all sorts of reasons. But he and an artist, they've gotten together and they're doing a graphic novel series right now. And they went to Kickstarter and they're doing it. And it's like, it's all theirs.
Right.
Everything. And they just got fully funded, which is kind of cool. So it's like there are a lot of different avenues, especially nowadays. There are a lot of different avenues to get your work out there. And especially if you're writing something that's meant to be read, i.e. a book, it's not like the old days where you got to then put in the money to print out 500 copies and then go to a store. You sell it online.
Yeah,
it's really pretty.
And there are so many outlets now too where you can sell. Even just 2014 is when I self-published, and then it was re-released in 2016. And even in the last 12 years, there are so many more places that you can release your book and so many different ways to market it. And
well, there's one in particular. I had lunch with Scott actually a couple of months ago, and we were talking about this, and he said, "Oh, did you get into this one place?" I'm like, "I can get into that place," and he's like, "Yes." I'm like, "Okay." So it's like a whole new.
Yeah.
It's like a new career. Suddenly, I'm a publisher.
Yeah. Right.
So it's kind of fun. It's a new challenge, and I'm really loving it.
And the cool thing is, once you get to like this stage, then there's like, okay, it's it's done. As a screenwriter, once you get to this stage that it's printed and it's done, that's just the beginning of the journey to then get it made. So the finish line is such a different place too.
I know there is let's wind the process back for me a little bit. One of the reasons why I started writing books, one was that the kinds of TV shows I was making, essentially dramas for young people, weren't being made anymore. We're going back to like the mid 90s or mid to late 90s. And I thought, ooh, this path is kind of drying up right now. But this is what I write. I can't suddenly write a 4-camera snarky sitcom. It's not going to happen. It's not in my genes. That's one of the things about writers, and I think all writers out there know already. It's like you can't necessarily choose what you're going to write. You've got to write what comes out and what you like. And you can't necessarily write what you like to watch or read. For example, I love comedies. I love sitcoms. I love comedy movies. I am not a comedy writer.
Right.
The most I can say that I am a humorist. I can be humorous. The most reaction you're going to get from seeing my show that I've written comedy or in a book, the reaction might be, that's the most you're going to get. You're not going to get a belly laugh from anything I've written. But I love watching it. I love consuming it, but that doesn't mean I can do it.
Yeah.
What I write is adventure, spooky, skewing younger type stuff.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of was drying up in TV there. So I thought, ooh, what am I going to do? And a lot of people, I got encouragement because a lot of people who I worked with on TV shows, independently, they come to me and say, DJ, I really liked reading your script. And they didn't mean I liked the show that this is going to become. They said, no, I enjoyed reading your script. So my scripts were good read. And for those, it's reading a script is a whole different ball game than reading a book. With a book, you're pretty much handheld all the way. With a screenplay, you've got to add some of yourself, and you've got to be the director and visualize what's on the page and what the writer wrote. And it's not always fun to read a screenplay, but a lot of people said, no, I really enjoyed the read of the way you write your screenplay. So that kind of gave me the confidence to say, why don't I eliminate the middleman? The middleman being the show. Why don't I write something that's going to go right to the end user, which is a book?
Right.
And that's kind of what gave me the confidence to do that. And I should also say that because I'm first and foremost a screenwriter, I've never been accused of writing great literature. No one has read my books and get lost in the lovely prose that I just so eloquently said. He's such a poet. It's like, no, I write my books like they're screenplays. and the for screenwriters out there, which are all there, that with a screenplay, you've got to paint the picture in as few words as possible.
Yeah.
It's got to be so right there. You don't want to be too much description. You just got to describe what's on screen. And that's kind of translated to my books. I don't waste a lot of words describing what the coffee cup looked like.
But what's so fun about that with the books, like I found, because I was the same mind, like you have to be very pithy with word choice in the screenplay, and it's just boom, it's visual. But then in a book, like my first draft of my first book was a literal copy and paste from Final Draft into Word, and I just got rid of the formatting. And I was like, I've got like 75 pages. That's pretty cool. Like it's something, And then I started to look, hey, wait a minute, each scene could be a chapter. And then I was like, okay, well, what's the meaning of each scene and the point of each scene? And then I would write to the meaning, and suddenly I have prose based around the actual scene. And you have so much more freedom to be able to write in a book. To just I can talk about whatever I want. This leaf, I'm going to talk about this leaf for 2 pages.
The thing that doesn't necessarily translate is rhythm. It's the rhythm of a story, right? Because screenplay is a very specific rhythm. 3-act structure. Well, I mean, 3-act structure works no matter what you're writing.
It's a pacing thing.
But it's a pacing thing, yeah. And how do you dole your story out? And how many times have you read a book that you're just like, okay, why are we going down that rabbit hole right now? And so screenplays don't necessarily translate perfectly, but they will get you to write a book that's a little more lean than some writers might tend to write. Yeah.
That's interesting. And before I forgot to mention at the top, which I meant to, please put questions in the chat at any time. We'll try to get to as many as we can towards the end. I am starring them. So even though you're going to ask a question early on and we might not get to it for a while, I have made note of it. So
there are a lot
of you have to stick around.
Yeah, that's true. If we get a lot of questions, we'll go into questions earlier. And I mean, I'm already seeing a lot of great questions and comments and everything. But and Eden even asked a good one here too. So we'll get to everybody, I promise. Yeah. But so let's kind of start a little bit from. I mean, we don't have to go to origin story or anything, DJ. But times have changed in terms of the industry. But how did you get your first writing job on a show? Like, what happened? Where did that come from?
I kind of have a unique history now. Even looking back, I could, hindsight is 20/20. And other than the very beginning of my TV career, because I had a career even before that, I was always a filmmaker from the time I was in junior high school. But my first professional jobs were working for a production company that made industrial films. So I know I said cut. Or action and cut more times before I ever got onto an entertainment set than you can imagine, and written more scripts, but all, corporate videos, how-to videos. I used to make new car video. I travel all over the country shooting these things. So I had a regular career before I got to what you're asking about.
Yeah. Okay.
And the first, one of the reasons that I ended up gravitating towards writing kids stuff. I mean, when I was writing on spec, I was not writing kids stuff. I was writing what I thought was important to write. So, I was trying to write comedies. As I said, big mistake. I'm going to write this comedy that's not going to be very funny. What do you think? Right. That's pretty much the main criteria, and it wasn't. Yeah. I also wrote a couple of plays that were, deeply dramatic, really thought-provoking studies to the human psyche. And believe me, I'm swimming in the shallow end of the pool of depth. So they were not very good either. But I was living in suburban New York, in the New York metropolitan area. And the first opportunities I got were because a lot of kids programming, if not all kids programming, really was centered in New York. So that's where the opportunities were. And through a friend of mine, I had a connection with a company. I don't know if you remember, or you probably don't remember, you may have heard of them, ABC After School Specials.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which were dramas for kids that were...
Yeah.
We're older than we look.
Yeah, right.
Well, the last one, I ended up writing one of the 20th anniversary shows for them, and that was the late 80s. So that's how far they went.
Okay, sure.
But that wasn't the first thing I did. There was another company that made the NBC equivalent of those school break specials. So clever, they changed the name just a little bit and call them school break specials. So I got a chance to write a half-hour comedy called The Great American Music Video with a friend of mine. And that got shot. I mean, to have your show shot was like, this is amazing. This is awesome. And because of that, I got to write. This is kind of interesting. I don't want to get too political here, but
and also just keep it kind of interesting if you could.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to be controversial here. I got to write. I wrote a couple of them for this outfit, and then I wrote and directed one for this outfit, and it was called Fair Game, and it was about a high school boy, middle school, high school, I don't know, who wanted to play for the girls' field hockey team.
Relevant.
Very topical thing that's going on right now. Yeah. And I took the attitude of, why not? If the girls can do this, why can't the guys do that? I changed my tune a little bit now, but it's kind of funny if you look back at it.
Yeah.
He was also incompetent too, so that helped. It wasn't like he was, it wasn't like he was going in there and bullying the girls around. So it was like, and from that, I got on the radar of ABC. There were companies that made this ABC, so I did some ABC after school specials. But that was all writing for somebody else.
Yeah.
I didn't direct any of the ABC things, but that got me on the radar of the guy who was producing a TV series based on the Encyclopedia Brown Boy Detective books.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And he was looking for a writer to first do a pilot episode and then hopefully a series. And he saw this ABC After School special that I wrote, that it was this really well-meaning, because they were all well-meaning stories about the subject was the separation of church and state. It's told through the view of a interfaith couple, Christian and Jewish couple, kids. And it was really earnest. It was actually pretty good as those shows went. And so he saw this very earnest story that I wrote, and somehow he extrapolated from that this guy can probably write a silly comedy story about a boy detective who solves crimes in this mythical town. Yeah. I don't know how he made that leap of logic, because I'm like, really? Okay, I guess. I don't know if so I did. So I wrote that. I also wrote a pilot for that Ghostwriter show, which is for a company that I got it because of the ABC After School specials. That was the last time that I wrote on somebody else's show.
Wow.
Everything I've done since then, all the stuff that I created.
So you created Are You Afraid of the Dark? It was your idea out of your head.
With the guy who hired me to do Encyclopedia Brown.
Okay.
We created it together, and they're like, why are we working for somebody else? Let's do our own stuff.
Yeah.
So ever since then, between Encyclopedia Brown, Crisscross, Flight 29 Down, it shows that I either co-created or created myself. So I've never been on a staff working for another executive producer or showrunner. So I don't really have that experience. I've run rooms, but not as a writer. I don't have that experience. So I've never been other than those first things. I mentioned them all. I think I mentioned them all. I did a couple of other things, but I've never been a gun for hire.
Right. Okay.
I've been the creator.
Would you be willing to do that now?
It depends. If it's like something that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just to work, no, I wouldn't do that.
Good for you. I mean, so you have the freedom to choose.
Yeah. I mean, if I was 40, I might say, yeah, I don't know if I could. It's tough to when you're the boss, when you're calling shot, when you're working with other writers and pretty much have to make all the decisions and rewriting all their stuff. I don't. Maybe I could. I don't know. If the opportunity, I'll quote a friend of mine and say, "I'll never turn down a job I have not been offered."
Right.
Okay. Right.
So who knows if some highfalutin guy came to me and say, "Will you write an episode of something?" I've done it with books, actually. Someone who's created a book series said, "Would you write one of my books?" I've done that.
That's cool.
So I guess I have been a staff guy. I've written for other people, just not in TV.
Yeah. Huh.
Interesting.
Go ahead, Scott. Yeah.
I was just thinking of Maria Bamford, who's an awesome Midwestern comic. She's nationally known, but she had a line in one of her specials, which is never say no to a job without getting the price first. Because, you got a price. At a certain point, you're like, okay, I guess I will do that.
Yeah, well, there's that. It's like, I'm not going to do your what? How much?
Yeah.
Totally.
So I would never say never to that, but in the exchange, the trade-off is that there are far fewer opportunities, because for me it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
You can't get a gig on somebody else's show who went through all the pain and suffering of trying to get their show up and running and succeeded.
Yeah.
And then you kind of slide in and say, hey, I'll write 2 episodes for you, whatever it is. I'm going through all the pain and suffering of getting stuff sold, and most don't.
Yeah.
So that's the downside to it. But what the upside is that when it does sell, you're in pretty good shape. Yeah.
So in getting back into development, I know a lot of times you come up with a concept for a book, and really quickly before I think the first book is done, what 3 books down the road will look like within that. So that's, there's creating the characters, the concept, but then it's also building the world, that it's going to be an interesting world to play in for at least 3 books.
Same with shows. Same with TV shows.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because with like Are You Afraid of the Dark specifically, that world only exists for that one episode since it's an anthology, other than the campfire set, So I don't know. What are your thoughts on or lessons that you've learned when it comes to building an interesting place for all of this action and all of these characters to play within?
Well, as always, as I was saying before, you get ideas from different places.
Yeah.
It all has to coalesce. So you have your character, you have the journey generally that they're going to go on, and then it's really 3 things. It's the character, it's the conflict. What is the conflict internally on this character with their own personal stuff, but also what's the external conflict that they've got to grapple with. And because I'm always writing adventure stuff, there's always some evil thing going on that they have to grapple with. And then there's what you asked. Then there's the setting. What's the universe for that? For me, that's the fun part, or I should say the easy part. Nothing's fun. It's the easy part. And I'll tell you, let's go for TV for a second. When you create a TV show series, I should say, you're expected to pretty much present everything for free. So talk about doing the self-publishing thing. It's like, you've done all this work. It's like, it's success. Oh, now the work's gone. I got to think. I've had shows succeed. I've had shows not succeed, where I create all the characters. I'll create all their conflicts. I'll create all of their arcs over a first season of a show. Create the setting for it. Create how the conflicts are going to play out. I mean, not in great detail, but enough that some executive is going to say, okay, I get it. I get where this is going. Right down to what the cliffhanger is at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
I was working on a creative show for Amazon. Oh God, we got so far as to it was based on a short film. It was animated, a short film that a kid made in high school. It was just a premise. And they came to me and said, can you make a series out of this? I was like, yes, I can. So I created this whole. It was very Pendragon. I created multiple worlds. It's about this kid that lived in a tree. It was like Whoville. There were little people that lived in this giant tree, and for various reasons, he falls out of the tree and falls into a river and goes on to this amazing odyssey where he meets all these people in different worlds and whatnot. That's why I said it's the fun part, because when you start coming up with different worlds, then it's pure imagination. Then you have to have that in you to be able to manifest the world where plants are talking to you before they kill you. It's that kind of stuff. I had a writer's room put together. I hired 3 writers to come up with, to basically beat out the entire first season. Generally speaking. And then I assigned scripts to each one of them. They all wrote 3 scripts, or each wrote 1 script. And we did an animatic of the first episode. And we were ready to go. And we went so far as the congratulations dinner was scheduled to say, you got the series. And that day they said, let's hold off on that dinner. It's like, ooh. Word to everyone, you may know this already. The worst thing you ever want to hear in life is we're 99% there. Because if you're that close and you're not there, that 1% is important. Yeah. And I won't go into the reasons why the show didn't happen. It was well, I won't go into the reasons why the show didn't happen, but it didn't. And it's just
the reality of the industry, sadly. I mean, these things are so fickle.
I mean, fortunately, we all got paid, so it wasn't like
right.
But usually you don't. When you're pitching ideas, I'm preparing for a pitch meeting that's going to happen next week, and all that is doing it on your own time. You're doing your own time. You're not going to get paid $1 for it.
Yeah.
And they expect a lot.
Yeah.
And so that's going back. I'm joking. It's like when you're trying to sell something, you work so hard and you've done all this stuff and the time and the waiting and whatnot, and then you sell it and it's like, wait, I'm not done. Yeah. I've actually got to make this thing now. Wait a minute, what's going on?
Sure. Yeah.
But it's the reality of the industry. And the Writers Guild has all sorts of rules about you're not supposed to do stuff for free. You have to pay you for your time.
No.
Bullshit.
Yeah. We're all doing it for free right now. Yeah.
You're all writing for free. I mean, once money starts flowing, you get paid, but it doesn't start flowing for a while. And if you do get a development deal, which I think in Amazon was a development deal, so I did get paid, but you don't get paid commensurate to the amount of time you put in on it. It just doesn't happen. But
this is why it's so important. I tell all my writers, we just cannot be precious about the projects we're writing. We can love them. It's not like we have to. Whatever. You have to love them, but you have to then go, okay, what's the next one? I got that one's done. It's fine. I'll fire it off to some contests. I don't care if they win or not. I just want to see how they do. Whatever it might be, I got to start on something else. You need to have, 5 or 6 that you can just pull from at least. And to be able to just spread the net. Like we can't rely on 1 or 2 scripts to be able to make a career. We just can't.
Yeah. And there's one thing you have to it's a bitter pill. One thing you really have to realize as a screenwriter, not TV so much, but in screenwriting for the theaters, theatrical, in screenwriting, in teleplay writing, in TV writing, the writer is king. Mm-hmm. You are the boss.
Yeah.
That is TV.
Mm-hmm.
In movies, the director is the king.
Right.
And the writer is at the dead bottom of the totem.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah. You think so? It's your idea. It's your concept. It's whatever. And as soon as the director comes in, I mean, obviously every situation is different, but pretty much you're just a work for hire. And it's like, but this is my baby. I wrote all this thing. Mm. No, I had and this is a TV thing, oddly enough. I remember so well when I went to NYU film school. And I took, of all things, I took a comedy writing class. Waste of time that was. Obviously, I didn't do well in that class. but it was because I liked comedies. Comedies didn't like me. Yeah. And it was from one of the original writers from Saturday Night Live, which is pretty cool. And at one point, she took us to see a run through of the show and all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
And one of the things that really stuck with me, well, 2 things. Maybe writers here can appreciate either of these things. She's a TV writer, TV comedy writer. And prior to Saturday Night Live, she wrote on a number of sitcoms. And two things stuck with me about what she said. One proved to be true. The other one I did not agree with at all. She was dead wrong.
Mhm.
The thing, the thing that proved to be true is she was on staff at these sitcoms. She wasn't the showrunner; she was on staff, and she said that if one line from her original draft got into the final show, she would consider that a huge victory. At that point, I'm a student. I'm just like, what? But you wrote this. How did you?
Right.
How does that work? I don't understand what that is. It's because she wasn't the showrunner. Now, again, at least a writer was making those decisions that her work didn't get in there. But so that is true. I've rewritten more writers than you can imagine, but that's the job of the showrunner, is to homogenize something into the show. The thing I didn't agree with, and I'm not going to mention the show because I don't want to say her name, but all writers have some story they're pissed off about. I can't believe they did that. It's part of the gig. She was writing on a very famous sitcom, and she wrote a bit or a gag for the main character. And the showrunner said to her, this character would never say that. Mm. And her response, as she's telling us, her response to us was, what do you mean? She says, whatever I want her to say. I'm the writer. I can have her say it. That's dead wrong.
Yeah, totally.
That is, from the showrunner's point of view, it's like if you write something, especially with TV, with continuing characters, you've got to write true to that character. Now, the character may evolve to eventually say something like that, but at that point in time, that character would not have said that. And I wanted to say to her, I don't care who you are, you're wrong. He or she, whoever was the showrunner was, it's like, you've got to be true, because viewers know that character.
Yeah.
As soon as the character says something that's off character, it's like, it's going to jump out like a sore thumb.
Right.
So being a staff writer, from what I gather, because I haven't done it, is even though I say writer is king on TV, staff writers aren't king.
No,
it's
but this process can happen on a feature as well. It may not be as much, but you're going to have other people come in. The director's going to make changes. The producers are going to make changes. And so like whatever the project is that actually gets set up or sold or whatever the option is completed and you're actually going into production, it's still getting rewritten. And you're going to lose some of your words, but it's all about the negotiation process. If you make sure that your contract is, saving you in terms of making sure you get paid for some rewrites or whatever. But even that doesn't protect all the words that you write. No. Everything's going to get rewritten.
There's a certain amount of protection, but it's not absolute.
No.
I'll give you another thing that I didn't realize this until I actually did. All shows and movies, for that matter, go into a process, a credit check situation to make sure the credits are correct. And part of that is they send the scripts to writers who volunteer to read it to make sure that what they do is correct. And it wasn't until I did one of those that I realized there was a rule, a union rule the Writers Guild has that I don't agree with, but what are you going to do? And that is that if you're the first writer in on a movie, at that point, you get 100% credit. If they bring in a second writer, in order for that second writer to receive screen credit, they have to provide 51% original material, new material. So that every writer coming in second, they're going to make sure they write 51% new material. And meaning they may be throwing stuff out that was gold.
Yeah, it's not to the service of the script, but it's
exactly or to the movie, to whoever. It's service to the Writers Guild law to make sure that they're going to get credit. So
the WGA thinks they're protecting the original writer, but that just causes the evil nature of the second writers to go. Well, I'm going to be
right. Well, I know the example where I kind of learned it. It was, I won't say what the show is, but it was a notable series. And there were two writers on this episode. And the second writer wanted credit. And so I read the original script and I read the revised script that the second writer came in on. And the original script was a mess. I mean, I'm like, sometimes it's hard to read a screenplay or a teleplay in this kid. And I'm just like, What's happening? So I'm going back. It was just, so I was clear why they hired a second writer. The draft from the second writer cleared it all up. It's like, oh, that's what's going. Okay, now I get it. It's fine. However, so it's up to me to decide or give my opinion. It's not up to me, but I'm one of the writers who gives an opinion. Should this second writer get credit? And rules aside, I'm thinking absolutely this writer should get credit because they saved this script. But it was all the same characters. It was pretty much the same rhythm, but they wrote it in such a way, and they added some stuff too, but they didn't add 51% new material.
Right.
Wow.
And when I say new material, not just necessarily how something was written, it's new characters, new settings, new scenes, not just rewording of what's there already.
Yeah.
And it wasn't 51%. So I reluctantly had to write, even though I think this writer saved this script, going by the Writers Guild rules, I can't recommend that the second
like Gary's
writer,
asking, if you change a word or two in a line, is that considered a change for the second writer? Then it is.
well,
It has to. How do you even equate to 51%? You have to start adding up words.
yeah, it's not words. It's substance. It is new characters.
Okay.
It is new scenes, new locations, new. It's content.
Okay.
It's not editing what's already there.
Got it.
Or and frankly, what this writer did, there would be a line of dialogue that just didn't make sense. They would rework that line of dialogue. I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
Doesn't go to the 51%.
I mean, in a way, there should be credit given to the person that creates the idea, that comes up with this concept. I mean, it's a 50-50 thing, or 49-51.
Right.
Anyway, so let's get into some questions, Scott. I see a lot of them are starred here, and they're really good ones, and I know that they could lead to some longer answers. But did you have anything you want to follow up with before?
Oh man, there's so much. I mean, I know. Let's just hit this because we were talking about the like the Amazon deal that almost happened, and we know that this is such a not an unusual thing. It's so hard to get something across the finish line, and you've been doing this for a year or two. How do you, because I've been able to work with you on set for 3 years, and sometimes under really hard conditions, whether it's the environment or the budget or whatever, and you don't crack. We just roll with it. So I'm guessing
all the time it's the environment, and all the time it's the budget.
But like, how do you keep going and wanting to continue, not lose your spirit? How do you keep pushing forward
Within that project or in general?
Just in the business.
Fear. Because I don't know how to do anything else.
Yeah.
And I guess I could say that with books, I kind of did crack. It's just like, I'm tired of that. And it happens that I'm not at the beginning of my career anymore, towards the end of my career. So I could have that, luxury, I guess you'd say, of saying that. So I haven't cracked on film and TV, but I have cracked in books. So, which is why I went to self-publishing. But it also being a little more, I don't know what the word is, but it's what I love to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like, what else am I going to do? This is my lot in life. And I'll tell you one thing is that I don't know if, I think a lot of people can relate to this, and it's not just with film and TV, but I think it's in life that for me, the best motivator is failure. Because when something gets rejected for whatever it is on whatever level, it just makes me dig in harder. I'm like, oh, God, I got to, it's like, I got to scramble. I got to do it. I got to move to something else. I got to do this thing. God damn it. When I get good news, I kick back and suddenly I'm just like, oh, okay, well,
that's right.
That's so suddenly I become less productive. So adversity is a good motivator.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question, but
no, it's good.
But it's I love it. I can't. I mean, as much as you're as a director producer, being on that set and the wind is blowing down trees, and you're afraid people are going to get killed, or maybe yourself. It's like it's kind of what you live for. So,
yeah. I'm gonna take this opportunity to bring this up here. I think the only picture I think of the two of us on set together.
Oh, that's awesome.
There is if you're on the podcast side not seeing this, DJ looking at a laptop. I and somebody else are holding a makeshift umbrella as a blanket over him so he could be able to see the screen. And I don't know if it's raining or if it's just bright.
It's probably
But
just bright.
on set of Flight 29 down.
Oh, that's great. Well, also this picture is perfect given what we're saying, because if you look at my T-shirt, it says "help,"
and you're sitting on top of a cooler.
Yeah, it's. Oh God, I want to tell you one brief story that hopefully, I don't know if it's funny, but when I was making Are You Afraid of the Dark, it was shot in Montreal, and it was a Sunday morning. I even was working 7 days a week. There's still some things I had to do. So I had to do laundry. So it's like, I get up and it was rainy, and I put my laundry together, and I went to the laundromat and put in the coins and doing the laundry. And then I went to the local Tim Hortons and I got a newspaper back when they had newspapers in those days. And I got my donut and I sat down at the thing to read my newspaper and drink coffee and whatnot. And I hear this voice behind me saying, "Yeah, we're a couple of big time TV guys." It was the director who I had hired that week who was doing the exact same thing. It's like, isn't this just such a cool, fancy job that we have? And it's really, I'm going to the laundromat and it goddamn knows where I am. And it's like, or I'm sitting on a cooler looking, and Scott needs to put a thing. That's the reality. Oh, there we go. Look at that.
I mean, here's another shot. Just again to show this was, NBC Saturday morning and Discovery Kids show. There's DJ on the left, Corbin Blue just behind him. But like, we were out there in the wild. We were roughing it, but it was still,
And Dave right next to me, the ball guy next to me, is our DP. God, he's doing great stuff now. He shot The Mandalorian. He shot True Blood. He just did a new Star Wars thing. That's Dave. Yeah.
I wanted to ask how he got involved with this project, because before this he shot all of Kevin Smith's movies, so he was working in the independent space, but still like notable things.
I don't know how he was connected with Stan Rogo, but it was Stan Rogo who was the other executive producer on the show. Stan brought Dave into this thing. If there's what, besides having the deal to make this show, which is why I was able to make it, that Stan had, the hugest contribution he had, in my opinion, is bringing in Dave Klein, because he was so great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, Max, if you want to pick a question or two.
Let's get into some of these here. There was one that was really good here. Okay, so we'll start with Peter Voigtwangers. And Peter, I hope I'm saying your last name correctly. But starting with, I've recently heard that novellas and short novels are attractive to studios, whether because they're easier to adapt or because most executives don't read anymore. So the shorter, the better. I have an answer for that, Peter, but DJ, what do you think in terms of how the industry is rolling right now?
That's exactly my experience.
Yeah.
It's because they don't read. But on top of that, usually the beauty of short stories is that they're usually high concept. Yeah. So I mean, you can't take a short story and put it on the screen exactly as written. You've got to build it into a larger thing.
Right.
But usually there's a high concept there. I mean, I'm going to say hopefully something that's not controversial and angers anybody. But how many Stephen King stories have been adapted for the screen? Which ones are the best? This is the controversial thing. The Green Mile, Shawshank Redemption, Body, which is Stand By Me. It's short stories.
Yeah,
they're the ones, the high concept that have, in my opinion, that have translated the best into onto the screen.
There's room to creatively develop these things. One of my writers, Colin, I won't say his last name. Colin sold his short story collection. It was a huge Hollywood Reporter, announcement. It was to Steven Spielberg and one of Spielberg's partners for a big amount of money. This was not a small amount of money. And so short stories and novellas, absolutely. This is why we were talking about early on. You shouldn't only be focusing on screenwriting. You should be working as a writer. Create a Substack, write articles, create a blog, create a graphic novel, get together with people and just create things. Because nowadays we have so many ways we can get our work out there. Can you imagine, DJ, when we were in our late teens, early 20s? We had literally no idea how to get our material in front of anybody other than maybe just trying to make it ourselves.
Yeah.
Or we had to go to LA and literally physically knock on people's doors.
Yeah.
There's so much more freedom now. It's now saturated, so that just means the material has to be that much better. But absolutely.
And there's also a truism is that, okay, you write something, whatever that something is on spec, and it doesn't sell. It doesn't mean it's never going to sell. Don't think that it didn't sell and therefore it's dead. I've revisited some stuff and that I wrote years before.
Yeah.
And something, there was an opportunity here or there. I'm like, or someone, inevitably, this happens all the time. People call me and say, someone's looking for XYZ kind of thing. Do you have anything like that? And my first knee-jerk response is, no, not really. I don't.
Yeah.
But I'll think about it. And then half an hour later, I'm off the phone. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I've got exactly that in go through the file. Like, here you go. Here it is. So don't think that anything you've done, it's all good experience, and it's all making you a better writer, and it's all doing all those important things. But just because it may get rejected right away doesn't mean it's always going to stay rejected. Especially because one of the frustrating things about both publishing and TV and movies is that executives are changing over all the time. And it can be a downside. And this has happened to me where I've had projects that are you always need that champion at the studio or the publishing company, whoever it happens to be, who's on the inside, who's championing your book. And suddenly they get fired. And suddenly you're like, uh-oh. Yeah. And there goes your project.
Yeah.
Same token, that means someone new's coming in there. So you may have something else that they haven't seen before. So nothing is wasted.
Yeah.
At the very least, it's great experience. It's improving your writing. And it may actually do come back around like Jason. He goes from back.
It will. Film Magician is asking a really good question. I can't choose what hooks me. That being said, I have an outline for a limited series, sci-fi. Even the log line sounds expensive. Is budget something we need to consider when breaking in? I want to hear what DJ's response is to this before I offer my opinion.
The key words here are breaking in. When you're breaking in, meaning you haven't sold anything yet, no, don't worry about budget. Write the absolute best thing you can. Wouldn't it be great to get in front of someone, and this has happened to me, you get in front of someone who's just like, wow, this is awesome, but it's just too expensive to do. If you get that far, you're doing pretty well.
Right.
So yeah, you shouldn't worry about it. Now, by the same token, once you're broken in, many times I've heard someone say to me, don't worry about budget. Use your imagination. And I'm thinking, bullshit.
Yeah.
I know damn well I know what the budget's going to be on this thing. Yeah. And then that's when you have to write the budget.
Yeah.
But when it's still blue skying and you're trying to sell it, you have all guns blazing. Don't.
Totally, because that person that says this is really great, it's just too expensive for what we do, they're going to remember you and your writing. That in and of itself is worth hopefully and probably a job in the future. And there's nothing to say that script can't come back around and somebody with the money can make it. Yeah. I will add on top of that, but we're seeing a huge resurgence in the independent film world right now. So if you have an idea that is going to be expensive, don't not write it because it's going to be expensive. Go ahead and write it, but also have some stuff in your resume, your repertoire that could be shot for $1 million or $2 million. And you don't need to know. I get this a lot with my writers. Like, how am I supposed to know how much something is supposed to cost? You have to do a little bit of research. You don't have to do a full breakdown. It's not like you need a budget on everything that you're going to write. You need a general idea. There's a difference between a $5 million movie and a $60 million movie. And it's usually the cast.
Which you have no control over. So.
No. Yeah. So anyway, it's a good question.
To share, I had when I was in school, I interned at Revolution Studios, which was a $1 billion company. I was their first intern.
I didn't know you're first.
I was their first ever intern.
Wow.
They had just launched, fairly recently, within a few months. And I had written a ghost story movie that I fully intended to shoot myself. And kind of towards the end of the internship, my boss, the wonderful Naveed Maklaharji, he asked me, like, do you have anything that you want me to read? before your internship is up. I'm like, he's a development executive. He's the guy that would potentially acquire something.
Very nice of him to ask that.
Wow.
He's a sweetheart of a guy.
Yeah.
Still is a good friend. Yeah. And I'm like, yes, I have something for you to see, of course. But then I thought, I'm going to hand over a screenplay that I was intending to make for $0. I need to make this a Revolution Studios film. So I went back and envisioned, like, okay, if I could dream as big as possible, how could I up the ante? And it's not at all about changing the story. Mm-hmm. It's just how to make this more polished, more exciting, more eye-catching. And then at the end of the day, I have a $0 version and I've got a Hollywood movie version. So it's kind of cool. I'm not saying that you should always have that, but it was cool that now I have two different versions of the screenplay.
And the best part of that story is that turned into Annabelle.
Yeah.
or no, she should go Avatar.
Yeah, right.
The most expensive movie ever made.
I was going to make it with marionettes, but now
and puppets.
Let's see here. Gary Fraser is asking, what do you all think about the idea of self-publishing a screenplay in screenplay format? And you can do this on Amazon. You can upload an actual screenplay.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't have any opinion on that because I didn't even know you could.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure.
Gary, I mean, it doesn't hurt you by any means. You're not going to make any money off of it. But, and it doesn't necessarily help you as far as saying my script is published on Amazon. Like, it doesn't really necessarily light up the fires within executives or anything. But it doesn't hurt. Like somebody might read it at the same time. How many more people might read it? You are kind of putting that script out there as if someone could just go, this is a pretty good idea. I'm just going to do it. I mean, they're probably not going to do that, but there's a chance, so.
Yeah. I just don't see a big upside, or like you're saying, not really big upside or downside.
Yeah.
If you want to do it just as a way to learn the self-publishing process, you've already got some content, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never heard of any executives going on Amazon looking for screenplays.
No.
They may. I shouldn't say. Maybe they do. I don't know.
Yeah.
They come to the ISA website.
Yeah.
Right.
There you go.
It's true. Eden is saying, DJ, what's your take on Vanity Press, a middleman of sorts? If you find this route positive, can you recommend any?
I don't know what Vanity Press is. I assume what I'm doing is Vanity Press.
I think what Eden means is like a small publisher. I think like a small non-major publisher.
Oh, okay. Okay. That makes sense. Again, I haven't had experience with that. The biggest downside that you don't get with self-publishing that you get with a publishing company is marketing, and they put it out there, and because publishers don't sell to readers, publishers sell to booksellers.
Mm-hmm.
And so the one thing that we talked about before, Vanity is paying someone to do it for you.
That's true too. My bad. Yeah. So you're actually paying a publishing company to get it out there, as opposed to them acquiring your book. Yeah. What you're saying is about self-publishing smart though, so we can keep going.
well, in that case, I don't see the upside to it, because there's always lightning in a bottle. There's always, you hit the lottery, but there isn't a whole lot of money in self-publishing. So you're going to spend it all on the Vanity Press when you can do it yourself.
I would hope that they would come with some distribution and some.
If they had distribution, right? If they
right.
say that we can get it into the distribution network, and we can get it into mom and pop stores or Barnes and Noble type thing. Maybe then it's worthwhile. But I can't speak with authority on that. It doesn't seem like you need it.
Yeah.
There's a legitimacy issue with that type of that type of publishing. And thank you, Tom, for setting us straight for that. But you may, I think it's a really good point. You might as well spend that money on hosting a Kickstarter campaign, buying some ads and some, publishing, their newsletters, spend it on, whatever you need to do on it, like a book cover, and self-publish it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll go to Tom then. So Tom is asking, have tropes evolved with the rise of streaming? How important are they in a script?
Define tropes.
Yeah, define tropes for us, Tom, just so we can better answer that. I think expected outcomes maybe, or expected moments. I'm trying to use a word other than cliche.
Because so we're talking the actual story now.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, the thing that is so crazy, one of the many things that are so crazy right now, is that the whole streaming world is evolving daily.
Yeah.
So just when you see one trend happening, that hits a brick wall, and now it's going to go that way. Now it's going to go this way. For example, for the Grizzled with a Heart of Gold, chosen one child. That's I see what you mean. Yeah.
Character archetypes.
Yeah. I mean, that's you're going to run into that
things we've
question
seen before,
no matter where you're selling it. Whether you're selling to broadcast, you're selling to cable, you're selling to books, you're selling whatever it happens to be. If you happen to strike the fancy of someone who's reading it, then that was a good thing that you had that grizzled guy with a heart of gold. If they've had too many grizzled guys with a heart of gold, one of the very frustrating things that you're all going to run into, and maybe you've already run into, is that the only thing you have control over is what you write. And to a certain extent, who you give it to try to sell it to, or get it published, or get it produced, or whatever it happens to be. The thing you have absolutely no control over is what else they have in the hopper. So you may have a show, a movie, whatever. It's just like, how can someone not be doing this? Because this is awesome. And you may be right, but you may be putting it in front of somebody that has something very, very similar to that.
Yeah.
And it's just not, or they lie. They don't like it and they lie. They say they have something that's very much like it because it gets them off the hook.
Yeah.
But so, and it's also about trends and tastes. I mean, I always joke to say, the idea, if someone's going to buy something or not, it depends on what they had for lunch. As much as you could say, okay, what are the trends right now? Remember the old days, and maybe it's still to this day, true to this day. Remember back when PCs first came out, home computers first came out. I remember buying my first IBM XT, and they have whatever bells and whistles, which back in those days, I think actually was a bell and a whistle. It was, and I said to the guy at the IBM store, I was like, well, maybe I should wait until the next thing comes out. And he said, I have news for you. You buy this computer, it's already obsolete. You can't wait till the next thing. So to think you're going to catch a trend at the time the trend is set, the trend is already over. And that's one of the things it's with executives and what movies get greenlit, what shows get greenlit. If you're following a trend, it's already passed.
Yeah.
So you got to come up with something that's unique.
You just took the word right out of my mouth. If the unique project does have a little bit of a trope, like grizzled, veteran or something, but then you place them in a situation we haven't seen before, now we have an evolution of a so-called trope, but it doesn't feel like a trope. It's just a type of character we've kind of seen before. Every story has always been told. Like there's no brand new story structure or plot structure that is actually going to be presented. It's going to be an escape film or a story, or it's going to be a rescue story or a convinced story, or, it's like 5 different things that's ever been told in terms of a plot structure. Now we start to put pieces in there. And I think streaming has evolved a little bit in terms of really, specific audiences. Apple makes this type of show and they're very prestige and kind of highbrow. And then you're going to see, CBS always making some kind of, dude in the woods trying to find a missing person, or, true crime. And you just kind of have to find your own little alley. And what do I love? And can I make it as unique as possible? But it's a good question, Tom.
I had a situation with Apple. I had to develop a show with Apple, and I sold them a show. And it was like an adventure comedy. It was about a school for genius inventors. So it was kind of like Honey, I Shrunk the Kid, but with multiple inventors, not just a shrinking thing. So it was every new episode they'd be doing shrinking rays or time machines, or it was like a big lark. And I knew I was in trouble when it turned in the first draft of the pilot, and the first note I got back from the development exec was, "There's a lot of hijinks in this." I was like, uh-oh. This is a show that's essentially about hijinks.
Yeah.
And if that you say that's a negative, we're done. And we were done. It was over. It's like, so Apple's like, they have some lofty trying to do something important, but
yeah.
So you kind of have to know your buyer too.
At least you made a little money off of it.
Yeah. It was. I'm very grateful for it. It was great, but you can't chase. Someone just wrote, you can't chase trends. You have to come up with something unique. And what might be unique was something that was a trend 20 years ago.
Right.
So, but to catch it just the right. When I did Are You Afraid of the Dark, one of the reasons it got made, almost didn't get made, and then got made, is no one had ever done that before. A horror show for kids, and it almost didn't get made because it's like no one's ever done this before.
Right.
But by the same token, I can't tell you how many times I've been either a big network or a stream or whatever it is, and I use almost as bad as hearing we're 99% there. Mm-hmm. The other, which you think is good news and it's not. The other one that I've experienced is, we have nothing else like this. Mm-hmm. And so you think, that's cool. I dodged that. We've got something like this bullet and it's fine. Well, the reality is the reason why they have nothing else like this is they don't make things like this.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
For all you fledgling writers out there, you are setting yourself up for a lot of anguish. But as long as you love what you're doing, hold true to that.
Yeah.
Don't give up. You can't take no for an answer because you're going to hear it all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
You can't let it get to you. Because if it gets to you, and you're done right now.
That would be the best way to end this, I think, because it is just the truth of the matter. But there are a couple other questions here, I think, that we can touch on if you're willing to stick around, DJ.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
We'll do 100 GOATs, 100 greatest people in events. Is that your real name? I'm kidding. Before going down the YA self-publishing path, what's the best way to get a lit agent? Can you suggest any agencies? I'm out of the agency world at this point. I don't really know the big top agents anymore, but it's querying.
Yeah, it's querying. It's putting it out there. And that's one of the things I was frustrated trying to get a new agent. Here I'm a New York Times bestselling author and had a hell of a time trying to get to the right person, and because that person's out there, but to find them and get connected, it's really, really frustrating. Which is why at this point in my career, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to deal with this anymore. One thing, I hopefully I'm not insulting someone just by saying something really obvious, but maybe this ties into the vanity press thing, is that if an agent charges you a fee up front, run. Agents do not charge fees. Agents take a percentage of what you earn. That's it. Any legit agent who's charging you money up front is not a legit agent. Yeah. So don't do that. But go. They're all on websites. They have. I mean, you can Google it. They're all there, and they say what they're looking for.
I will add the best resource is Publishers Marketplace. It's literally publishersmarketplace.com. Be warned, it's a ridiculous amount of information. You could spend days filtering through all of this. But what's cool is that it's very user generated, from what I remember anyway. And this is 12 years ago. I'm sure it's evolved a lot. But it's other writers' reviews about agents, either responding to the query or not, who did, how many. It's a really amazing tracking site. I think you do have to pay. But if you are looking to get an agent through the publishing world, Publishers Marketplace is awesome. They have obviously a whole bunch of publishers on there as well.
I got to ask a quick question because I think we've done a pretty good job of covering angst. DJ, could you talk about being a New York Times #1 best-selling author, the first time that was ever bestowed upon you, like getting that news? Any of that?
Well, there's a funny adage to it too, but it was my Pendragon series, and the way that came about, the way it happened, was just a confluence of convergence of things that just struck. It was the 5th Pendragon book that hit #1. The first 3 came out pretty fast. They'd already been written pretty quickly, but most of the sales were through book fairs, and those numbers don't hit the bestseller lists. But the majority of sales were through book fairs. When the 4th book hit, the timing started to slow down a little bit. So suddenly there's an appetite that was built up Kids had gotten the first 3 books. Now they're waiting for the next one. They had to wait a little more through no choice of my own. And I don't think through no choice of my publisher either. It's all dumb luck. So the 4th book, interestingly enough, had a twist ending that I think made the series popular. But then there was a long wait before the 5th book came out. And the 5th book was published in August, which meant before the book fairs could get it. So therefore, if you were waiting for that book, if you wanted to see what was going to happen, you had to go to a store and buy it in a store. And then the Times thing came out. I still have a copy, of electronic copy of it, because it showed the top 10 list, and Pendragon was number 1. Harry Potter was number 3. That was
that book 1 of Harry Potter?
No, it was the series. It was the series list. There's a individual book list, and then there's a series. So that because there are a million New York Times lists.
Yeah.
100 New York Times lists. So this was the YA or young adult series list.
Okay.
So it was but that meant it outsold all of them that Harry Potter's around at that point.
Huge.
For 1 week.
Yeah.
So that was a good. I mean, I'd been on that list for a while, but always 3, 2, 7, 6, 5. And over the course of Pendragon, I think it's been on that list for like 80 weeks or something like that. But to get number 1 was like, gung. That was really cool. That was pretty cool. And as my agent at the time said, I didn't even think about this, but he said, "You will forever be a number 1 New York Times bestselling author."
Right.
It's like you will always be a gold medal winner.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I agree, Scott. That is a good way to end it, because we want to end on a positive note, because success is possible in the writing industry, whether you're a screenwriter or a novelist or a journalist or songwriter. It's all possible. Mm-hmm. It's about putting in the work
and tenacity.
Yeah. You can't just sit back and wait for somebody to write it on your own. Gary, we did to your question about AI. I don't think we're going to have time to talk about it. I will say that AI is not going anywhere. It's only going to get bigger. Don't rely on it to actually write your book for you. There's a heart inside of you that the AI doesn't have. It can maybe give you some little thoughts and brainstorms or something, but you can get too reliant on it. So anyway, I said I wasn't going to talk about it.
That pretty much sums it up, though. What you said pretty much sums it up.
Yeah.
So.
And Max has done a whole hour-long talk on AI. So if you go through the ISA channel, you'll probably be able to find it.
Yeah. That he did not write with AI.
True.
Right. It was actually a fake version of me with a fake voice giving the presentation. Scott, anything else we want to send DJ off with?
Just thank you so much for, again, joining us. The last time we did one of these, we spent a lot of time talking about Midnight Mass, the Mike Flanagan Netflix, which shows you how long ago it's been a bit. So it's been a blast having you back.
And go out, thank you, and go out and buy Scott's book and my book.
Oh, actually, on that note, here we go. So in addition to the Paper Trail, the most recent release, also it was so interesting and funny. You were talking about Ghostwriter. And if people want to see DJ, they can go onto Apple TV.
Did you look at it?
I haven't done that yet. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you could touch on that really quickly.
I talk about writing something as a hire. There's a TV show on Apple TV called Ghostwriter, and it's without going too much into it. Each story arc has to do with a book and characters coming out of books and stuff, like fantasy kind of thing. And in the first season, they did 4 books. They did Frankenstein, Alice in Wonderland, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and the Jungle Book. And so a friend of mine called me up and said, we're doing this thing. Would you consider writing an original book for it? So I said, sure. So I did. So I wrote, that was a kind of writer for hire thing that I did. But the irony is, I said, I wrote the pilot for the original Ghostwriter.
Right.
They're like, what? Like, yeah, back in the 90s, I was the Ghostwriter. So, and then during COVID, Apple's looking to do kind of that, when you go to a streaming site and you see all the extra material, the added bonus type stuff, they're trying to do some stuff for Ghostwriter, and they wanted to shoot something which they could shoot during COVID, which is meant all remotely. They said, we're going to do a thing where it's about writing, and one of our characters, we're going to show them writing a book and the steps they have to go through in writing a book and whatnot. And would you be the host? And I was like, sure, I'll be the host. That's fine. It was a grueling day, and I wish I had a teleprompter. But so you can go to Apple TV Plus, go to Ghostwriter, go to the series page, and look up Beyond the Book or Beyond the Page or something like that, and you can see me looking like freaking Mr. Rogers in front of my fireplace, talking to camera.
How fun, though. That's cool.
Yeah, I know. They put me in a sweater. I was just like, oh,
that is cool.
Yeah. So yeah.
Huge thank you to everybody who stuck around and watched, whether you did have to go or if you're watching the recording here. For you watching still, it will be available on YouTube immediately on the ISA's YouTube channel. I'm going to be starting a YouTube channel for the Story Farm pretty soon. I have a lot of fun little ideas. I'm launching a few different things in terms of my coaching as well, so you can reach out, max@thestoryfarm.org. But DJ, it's always so much fun interviewing you, and I remember our live interview at the last bookstore in Los Angeles when I was releasing my book, and you were so supportive. And
that was fun.
I still haven't finished my second book yet.
Writing is not easy, as we all know.
It's coming. It's coming. Huge congrats to Scott also for publishing his second book.
Thank you.
And everybody, if you have any questions of any kind, you can always reach out through the ISA Connect community. If you're a Connect member, it's like our own Facebook algorithm without the algorithm.
You can connect with me. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. It's just DJ MacHale. It's not. I haven't gone the TikTok route.
I'm going to be going that route soon.
Oh, you're going to the dark side.
Well, I'm going to wait until the American version comes out. I think it's like September or something, because they're going to sell it and then buy it. I don't know. It's such
I think you've got to come up with writer-oriented dance moves then too.
And have a new one every day.
Yeah. Maybe I won't be going to TikTok. Thanks, everybody. Scott, DJ, always fun.